Your county work session dated on this Monday, the 4th of March. It's 11:30 a.m. The first thing that we have is approval of the minutes from the work session held on February 26th. Unless there's any questions, I'll entertain a motion for approval.
Motion to approve.
And a second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, great. We'll move to our first item for the public, which is a discussion or the sheriff's office update, including discussion regarding jail expansion, wage study, and an upgrade for radios. We're glad to have the greatest sheriff in the land, Sheriff Ryan Arbon, with Emily Wild, Scott Park. We've got the always handsome Kylie Slater and Corporal, Captain, and we'll make it Chief today, Reese. We're great to have you here with us today. Scott Park and Chris Crockett, John Bond are also here with us. Sheriff, since you're listed first, why don't you go ahead and lead out, please?
Thank you. I appreciate it. I hope you don't feel overwhelmed with all the heavy hitters in the room, but I thought they would be important support for the agenda I have today. We have a lot of important issues. So I will lead off being respectful to the time we have with Sergeant Slater to talk about radios. And I got, and last time we met, you asked that Scott Park be present because of the budget amount of these radios updates. So I will turn the time over to Sergeant Slater.
Great, thank you, Kyle. Go ahead.
So this is just, I guess, any questions for, regarding the upgrades for the radios?
So last year, Scott, I thought we put some money away for radios but I thought the request that you made 2 weeks ago was for more additional money. Unless I misunderstood, that was what I heard of. And so I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page with regards to that.
Yeah, we've been aware that the radio conversion to digital was coming for a couple of years now.
Yeah.
And they've always been delaying it. I actually called and talked to Kevin Rose, when I first heard this, and he confirmed, yes, actually, we're finally going to do it now.
Yep.
So I don't know that we have much of a choice. The quote I have here was just under $520,000.
Yeah.
We have money for that saved in our capital projects fund. It's not been allocated. We've just been setting it aside and saving it, but we have never allocated it. So if you are okay with the commissioners, what we'll do is actually have you sign a budget change to appropriate the money that we've been saving to use for radios.
Okay, so while it wasn't included in last year's budget, we have been saving it so that we can move that money over and so it's just gonna
Yes,
require
we're
that.
putting money in the fund balance, just never giving them authorization to spend the fund balance. So it's in the savings account, just needs your permission to spend it.
So thank you for that clarity. That helps me a little bit because I remember that, but I thought the request from 2 weeks ago was an additional 520 on top of all of this. So that's better news as far as I'm concerned.
The only thing.
Let's hold on, Kylie. Let's go to the sheriff first.
I just gonna remind the group here that Lieutenant Horton and Sergeant Slater approached my office, the admin about 3 years ago and said that this digital change was coming. And it kept putting off, but we're gonna need about 500,000 for this digital change. We advised the budgets every time we had budget discussions, but we didn't know for sure. And with Scott Park, we just set it aside, but we were saving for it. But
Right,
yes.
and so this is a discussion that we hear over at the 911 all the time. I did hear though, back over there, Commissioner Furr and I, who sit on that particular board, did hear that cutover was originally scheduled for Q2, but now it's been pushed back to Q3 or 4 for this year. Is that right?
Yeah, so the plan is to do a soft cutover, which means to reprogram the radios and stuff. They want it. When we came to the last meeting, we got like a week's notice that was going to happen. And so that's kind of where it's been pushed up. I mean, the project's been going on since 2017. And if you recall, we upgraded our radios then, right? So spent a bunch of money then, and then it's just been, this was actually supposed to start Q1 this year, but they've run into some setbacks throughout the state. And so, yeah, ours is pushed back to Q3, but there is a soft reprogramming of the radio, which what this quote and the bid is for is some of the internal components to be flashed to where it can go digital.
And if memory serves me correctly too, this will help eliminate dead spots that you've had in places of the county, especially in the upper valley. Is that correct?
No, I have been working with UCA. We made a site visit to the Liberty Tower,
Uh-huh.
a week and a half ago. So UCA is going to trunk in that site. So I just got an email with been working with Bryce Taylor. So me, Bryce and Bill went up with UCA and they've got the tower specs. So this project is going digital, which allows more radios on the system,
Okay,
is essentially what it's doing.
okay, great. Questions for this room regarding this first topic, radios? Thank you. Great. Next, Sheriff.
All right. Let's go to study for wages. As you recall, officials, we've always talked about wages and being competitive. It's always been the position of the sheriff's office, never been to be out in front or more than anybody else, but to be competitive. And we've been working with Emily and Scott to figure out what the best approach is. This as we've met a couple of times. Maybe if we did our own wage study, maybe that's not the best approach, but to maybe include a third party to do the wage study. And so working with Emily and Scott, we've come up with a proposal. I'm gonna let Emily explain that study proposal for you.
Great.
Yeah, so my team reached out just to a couple individuals, just to kind of get an overview of how much it would cost to do a wage study. We got two back and one didn't respond, and there was a huge discrepancy in the cost. And then also trying to look at the quality of data that we would get. And we feel like using the agency that came back with, you know, the cheaper would probably not get us the quality of data that we need. Because I think that this is really actually important to make sure that our wages, but also looking at how we're paying, our pay structure, you know, analyzing the affordability of doing anything for the next, you know, over the next 5 years. So looking at all of that, we felt like putting out an RFP to do a bid to have somebody give us, you know, a bid to do a wage survey would probably benefit and make sure that, you know, we're doing a good, adequate job of making sure that we're looking at wages, we're looking at our compensation structure for our sworn officers. So with that, I don't know if Scott has anything to add.
Well, so I think the reason why we're bringing it up is because so Davis County did one similar to what we are proposing to do. You know, if this were a $7,000 study, we could afford it in our original budget, but Davis County was what, close to 50,000?
Davis County, now they did one, this is in 22, they did it countywide, but it was 60,000.
Yeah.
So we are just.
Countywide for corrections and sheriff's. only?
Countywide, every position.
Okay,
We're looking at just sworn officers, so
Right.
we don't expect it to be $60,000, but it could be. I mean, I don't know, upwards of 30,000, I don't know, until we actually do a request for proposal.
Yeah, so the question is, we didn't want to go out and do a request for proposal, get back at $30,000 and nobody have that in their budget to pay for it. So we didn't want to go through the time and effort unless commissioners, you would be okay with the concept of us moving forward with this, knowing that the price, if we do this, once we get the bids back, maybe 30, 40 plus $1,000. If we were to fund it, we would pull it from the contingency fund we set aside. So the county set aside, commissioner set aside a contingency, as we asked everybody to kind of trim up their budgets. This would come from that contingency.
okay. Commissioner Bullis, your portfolio, any questions, comments?
No, well, a comment, and I talked to Scott about this. I'm okay to do a study, but only if we intend to act on that. If we find results that tell us we need to make adjustments, we need to be willing to do that. If not, then why are we gonna do the study? Right?
Mhm.
If we're okay with, and I know that our starting wage may not be, maybe below average, but you know, what comes after that? What do our deputies look like 10 years into their career at the sheriff's office? Are they paid better than they are in another entity after 10 years? Like that's the depth of the study that we need. We need to find out not only they're leaving for a couple dollars more or a lot more, but what does it look like in the future so that we can communicate that with the department and say, hey, you know, you might start lower, but in the future, they have this or that, whatever those variables are. We either need to be willing to communicate those to the sheriff's office staff or make the adjustments necessary. And if we're not willing to do that, then we shouldn't pay for study.
That makes sense to me. You know, we've always been very supportive of the sheriff's office over the last 5 and 6 years with the wages. This could be a double-edged sword though, too. What bothers me with what you've said there is that if it comes back and says, you know, these positions are paid too much, then how do we address that? Because I don't want to take money away from the guys if the study were to come back the other way. You know, we're in a unique situation where we're really close to a big urban center. We're also really close to a rural area as well. So we're in that buffer zone. So that study could come back and not be good. And if we're gonna commit to follow the study, I don't want to hurt the guys.
So I don't know that it would hurt them. I mean, because you can also look at, you look at maybe starting wage, but you look at also the structure, right? The structure, because, you
Mhm.
know, is a step program something that we need to move to for our sworn officers? So, maybe the starting wage doesn't change, maybe it does, I don't know. But, maybe a step structure for our sworn officers changes that's different than the county. I don't know, but without having that data, it's hard to make those decisions. And I do know, I have talked to a couple other counties and they do have different pay structures for their sworn officers than the rest of the county. So deciding to do that and how we want to structure that, that all kind of is part of looking at the wages, right? I mean, not just the wages, but the structure as well. So in my opinion, you look
Wow.
at the wage, but also the structure of how we set it up, and is it meeting the needs of our sworn officers? So,
That's
where
what I think.
sorry.
If it needs to meet their needs, and that the starting wage is what we always look at. They left for another agency for this much more. But there are other things, whether it's the pay structure, whether it's the benefits. I mean, there are so many factors in this that even if the starting wage didn't change, we could communicate to, your employees, "Hey, we've changed the way we're gonna pay you, we've changed your benefit," whatever. It's just very complex.
and
More
also,
complex than a starting wage.
yeah, and also looking at, what's the key years of service that we need to keep our sworn deputies, our 5 to 10 years, right? Those are the people that are leaving, right? We're training them, we're getting them up to speed, and then they're leaving. So is that group of people, is that where we're missing the mark on the salary? Are we, do we need to get them to the maximum faster? There's a lot of questions that we need to answer. And I feel like a wage study will help us answer those questions, not just saying we need to increase the starting wage.
Sheriff, your comment on this with regards to what was heard and then what Commissioner Bolus's comment.
We have a lot of data at my office, or the deputies have left and they say that they're leaving and they're getting paid this much more than they're currently making. And it's easy for me to say, commissioners, look, they're leaving for this much more. I want to be able to follow Emily's lead and say, maybe it's more than that. And it's just like, just as an analogy, with the jail, we got the Kiesel facility. We need more data on the Kiesel facility to figure out what we got exactly and how to work with that. Same here with the study on how to deal with pay. To me, the sheriff's office is the ultimate place to work because there's so much opportunity compared to other agencies. But what we're hearing is a lot of people don't care. It's about pay. But is that what the real answer is? And so the study, I think, can provide us and give us the information we need to make a better decision on how to structure. One story that I heard Emily referenced where other agencies have changed the pay structure for law enforcement. You often hear that the old timers, I consider myself an old timer in law enforcement. When I got into this profession, it was me and 200 other people for 2 positions. Now it's 20 people for 20 positions. And the quality is just not what it is. And maybe a step program is better, but back when there were so many, a pay for performance makes sense. And so you hear these stories of which type of pay is better. I'm not sure which is the best right now, but if we have a comprehensive study that can look at the data, compare it with others, and look at the geography, the demographics, all the data that we can compile for our area, and look at it reasonably and make that good decision. Another thing too, commissioners, you know, that a long time ago, we would compete with just agencies within the county. But where I live in North Ogden, there's officers that work for Salt Lake City. That's how far they're letting them drive their vehicles clear to North Ogden, Salt Lake. So the pool that we're competing against is not just, we hear people that they can go across the border to a neighboring agency. We're competing with people that from Cache as far as to even South Jordan and Salt Lake. So that's who we're competing with.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So again, if this come out of a contingency, Commissioner Bolos, so you're feeling then on it?
I would like to move forward with it.
Great.
Because I think we're gonna be surprised at all of the different facets that go into these decisions. I really do. It might be an easy fix. It might be a change of the pay structure, and all of a sudden, you're not losing deputies. You know what I mean? I just think there's so much that we don't know about.
So far as you have a consensus then, Emily, let's move forward, but I would like an option to not just, here's the issue that I think we have, another one too, is if we do just do it for first or law enforcement at this time, I think we ought to, I'd like to get a second bid from them. I'd like to get 2 estimates. I'd like to get one for just what you've requested today, but I'd like to get one for the entire county.
You want a second tier that includes the whole sheriff's office? Sworn only, and then the sheriff, and then law
I mean,
enforcement?
everything in the whole county. I mean, if countywide like they did in David,
Yeah,
just a price, why we're getting the price.
Sure.
I mean, let's just, why we're getting bids, let's see what that looks like.
We can do
Cause
that.
if they come back at 40,000 and say for 20,000 more, we'll do the whole county, it might be worth doing the whole thing. I think your point, it would be nice to have the information because that would make us better. It's like an audit. I love it. I think it's great.
Yeah.
Commissioner, Crockett?
Ask a question. Does Commissioner Frohr, has he been brought up to speed on this one? Because with a topic like this is just a suggestion. A topic like this is so important. Maybe perhaps a meeting or an individual sit down with Commissioner Frohr, let him know.
It's not a bad idea.
It might be helpful. I've written down a few notes for him, but.
Well, and I would say at this point, we're still a little ways away because all we're going to do now is put out an RFP to see what the costs come back at. And if they come back at $100,000 for the cheapest qualified one, I think we're gonna have to come back no matter what, present the results of the RPD. So we're not actually, we're not getting permission to go ahead and do the study. We're getting permission to go ahead and bid the study.
So let's do this. I think, let's go ahead and go move forward with what we have. And then with that in mind, that whatever the bid findings come back on that we present again, so Commissioner Frohr is included in it. That's a wise decision.
And so I'm just gonna earmark some money in the contingency. We won't actually move it till we know what the cost is, but when it comes through, you'll see a budget change come through.
Well, that's what you're asking for. And that's so that'll work. Okay, great. All right, so you've taken care of wage study now, and you've taken care of upgrade for radios. Now you're gonna go to jail expansion probably. That's what's listed.
Chair, did you want to do one more before that?
Yes, go ahead, Scott.
So you remember, commissioners, about a month or so ago, I came and presented the rollover request from 2023 to 2024, money approved in the 2023 budget that was not spent, rolled over to 2024. We had excluded the sheriff's office from that because we didn't have their final numbers at that point. They would like to roll over 2 projects. These were both funded in 2023. One was for evidence room upgrades and one was for, I call it refrigerator, but I think it's a freezer, right? A big freezer remodel.
Yeah.
It was five
Is that
hundred,
for kitchen or for?
For the
kitchen?
kitchen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
so we had appropriated of the money, we had 531,000 that was previously appropriated and not yet spent in 2023. So the request would be to roll that amount of money that we had already budgeted in 2023 over to 2024 to give them permission to finish those two projects. So 531,000 and change.
Mr. Bowles,
Okay, but
go ahead.
Okay. And then did you want to talk about the roof leak at Kiesel for 50 grand?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Reese.
Do I want to? No. I'd like it
Do
to
you?
just magically repair itself. The linear section of the Kiesel facility, which then bleeds over into Eldorm also, which is what kind of is the portion of the building that connects the pod and linear together. Both of those roof lines are leaking more than simple patchwork that our property management can repair. So they have gone out to get an initial bid. We have two more bids, I believe, coming in. But the initial bid was $50,000 to repair both of those roofs, strip them all the way down, repair them how they are, should be properly repaired and move forward.
That money would just come out of the capital projects. We would actually transfer to the sheriff since it's a small enough dollar amount. We'd let you guys manage the project, but that's the source would be. So it's not coming from contingency, but from capital projects for repair and replacement.
Is that how we do things from the past? Is that pretty much how we've standard operating?
Yeah,
procedure
usually
here?
when it's less than $50,000 or less than actually about $300,000, I haven't used it from capital projects and we basically just pull it from the general fund, but we've got enough money in capital projects that I think this would be the best source for it. It's $54,000. It's not gonna make any change to any of the decisions you guys make with your strategic plan. I think that's well within our margin of error.
Okay.
And I'm just trying to preserve that contingency in case other things come up. I
I'm
hate to
glad.
spend it all this first quarter.
Great. Commissioner Bowles,
I'm okay with that.
okay.
So commissioners, if you're okay with that, I've actually just
Oh.
sometimes the electronic versions don't get approved timely. I'd like to get these.
What?
You're very great at approving them.
I'm he's probably looking at me.
No, we have to go both along.
I like paper still. I'm planting a lot of trees for a lot of people in the future, so.
Thank you. I'll get that in.
All right, last,
You're lucky, Reese, that wasn't on our agenda here. You know, I get in a lot of trouble from the attorneys when that's not listed on this agenda.
Did you notice I was not the one that brought it forward?
Well,
So I feel like
I've
Scott
just-
Park should be the lucky one, not myself.
Well, you know, you're kind of my favorite because you have the most job titles at least.
This is when you tuck those moments in your little pocket and you say, hey, Scott, remember that one time you broke the rules?
I don't know that I broke the rules, did I?
all right, as Reese is passing these, the study out.
Do you have another one? I'll give it to, or leave
Yes,
one on
absolutely.
Commissioner Flores' desk, will you? Will you,
Yes.
Phil?
Yep.
That's great.
Don't call him Phil,
What's not?
just Reese,
Okay, sorry, Reese, sorry.
but nobody
Thank
called
you.
him Phil, nobody.
I like it.
I
My. Thank you, does, but let's not do.
I said, nobody called him Phil.
Thank you, Commissioner Bowles.
As, just as a recap, the last, several years, we've been working on, some data that has, taken us back 25 years ago. That there would be some add-ons, some, upgrades, some renovations, or you could say, some, to 12th Street based on population, crime rates increased. And we proposed it to the public spoke. And the bond was defeated for the expansion. We have clearly and obviously we have listened to the people. We shared, and those results were are known. We came back to the commission and we've been working together with you guys to figure out an alternative solution. In the meantime, we continue to revisit the idea of what can we do with Kiesel? What can we do at 12th Street? Are there buildings in the area of 12th Street that we could purchase to change? There's that L3 building down the street. I've even thought of you know, maybe we could use some, just whatever building we could use to make this work. We've got this mental health problem that's just as you guys have both walked through recently and just see how crammed it is. Reese will share you some recent numbers that have been of high concern and you can, he'll share those with you briefly, but it's not an emergency, but the urgency to get something done has definitely increased. We still want to keep booklet for you guys to go through. Reese, please
Thank you,
take it
Joe.
from there.
Option 1A and 1B, so start over. This is a very high-end, high-level, 30,000 foot perspective of feasibility. More than anything else, we asked that to make sure that we were using the property to the best usage of the property. So it's not programmed yet, it's rough square footage, but that conceptually gets us down the road to the next step. Option 1A and option 1B come out to just under $31 million. Those two options, thank you, Sheriff, allow us to do is push out to the future expansion corridor between Golf Pod and Fox Pod. What it does is moves us forward significantly as far as building a new medical and clinic area along with an infirmary and mental health housing for both male and female inmates.
Chief? Can you explain to me really quick, the male housing component? You've got future pods in there, but I'm just flipping back and forth. What is that rectangular thing that says male? What's the difference between the two seem to be?
1A and 1B are fundamentally similar. They're
Okay.
just slightly different layouts.
Are pods the most effective? Are pods the most effective way to do inmate housing still?
Yeah, as opposed to,
I don't know.
yes, pods are still the best option. So not to disparage the prison, and I'm grateful Commissioner Froh's not here and some of his decisions as a state lawmaker. The state prison made it so that it's all linear design. They're very long, designs, it's, direct supervision model, which is exhausting for staff. And you
That's
see that in the
your,
newspaper articles.
so you took us down there and the impetus behind my question was because of that.
Thank you.
So that's the only reason I asked. While you're in the redesign, I just wanted to thank you for.
Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Perfect. So taking another step back, perhaps Commissioner, yes, pods are still the best management
Great.
for the type of inmates that we manage.
Thank
What we're proposing in option 1A and 1B is mental health housing sections for females and male inmates, which would allow us to start housing normal run of the day, mentally stable individuals in our pods as the pods were originally designed to do. If you recall, our bed capacity at the 12th Street facility is 888 beds. Right now, we got to 750 2 weekends ago, and it felt like we were going to come out of the walls because of how many individuals we require to house single cell, time out alone, house alone because of their mental illness.
Okay,
Okay, so by adding the 2 mental health housing units, that allows us and potentially expands the longevity of pod housing sections in the secure portion of the facility. So if you go to option 2, this gets us closer to the original design that we had put together in the $98 million bond for the Justice Center. It keeps medical and mental health in the center of the building. A flaw of this design that I struggle with is the mental health units become a single floor rather than 2 tiers. And so it reduces the number of cells that we can put into that. It puts a new sheriff's administrative building, which is forecast to be 2 stories out in front, out in the parking lot. So, and that's about 34 million.
Yeah, 35.
35.
They're single tier because you're using the current admin space.
So we wouldn't be able to go up.
Could you go linear?
The architects are very adamant, no. The
Okay.
sheriff has asked again and again if we
Oh,
can
really?
go. They're very.
And they said no, why?
Foundations and
footage
footings.
and foundations would, yeah.
Okay,
That's what I was told.
okay.
Option 3 reconfigures our booking area. This is the vehicle Sally Ford, puts the mental health housing units out over the sewer pumps. It's quoted as being just over 35 million. I have concerns and I appreciated that I could cite Mr. Wilkinson, and he has the same concerns about the infrastructure underneath of what that is. Everything can be done at a cost, but moving that sewer pump is a heavy lift in my mind still. So, that brings us to option 4. We didn't even put a price to this. Long term, it doesn't move the ball ahead, and I think for me, locks future administrations into a decision that they may not appreciate. What the concept is that we take our current kitchen area and laundry area, use that, repurpose that for medical and an infirmary, and then push laundry and the kitchen out west. There's a lot of logistics for that, and at the end of the day, it does not give us enough square footage to move us. It gives us help right now, but not long term.
I don't even see laundry on here.
On option 4, go
Sorry.
left.
Sorry, I already flipped the page because you're not interested in.
I'm not interested in option
Like,
4.
where did
Thank
it
you,
go?
Commissioner. I appreciate that. We're moving on.
There's not a price tag on it.
There's
So
not.
I skipped that
I
page.
appreciate that. Thank you.
Sorry,
Okay.
yeah, I got ahead of you.
Nope, that's perfect. That gets us to option 5, which again puts medical and the infirmary in the heart of the facility, which I do like. It gives us medical or mental health housing out in our parking structures, which allows us to go up 2 tiers. And it proposes putting the administrative building on top of the sewer plant. It also comes at a price tag of almost $49 million.
The same issue though, right, with
Same
building
issue.
over the sewer pump?
So, may I interrupt? Thank you. Sean,
Yes,
how big are those pumps out there?
I'd have to ask Bryce how big they are. We have done work on them. They're significant, so
Are they E1s or what are they out there?
I don't know the specifications on them. You want me to call Bryce or text him and find out?
No, but it's been brought up now 2 or 3 times about that and it's just, these guys know more than me. I've just heard as I deal with some of the different sewer and water districts that they're making some less expensive package plants for 40 home subdivisions and 60 home subdivisions and things like that. So scalability is now becoming more affordable and we're not talking millions of dollars. You know, when you do like a whole Wolf Creek subdivision, for instance, that's millions and millions and millions of dollars. When you're doing some of these others, like some of the scalability is less, $200,000 for a package plant, and then you're just using, you could do land applied storage pond somewhere, which could be back in this corner. Sorry, back over in this corner for reapplication.
So we pump into Ogden City's sewer. These pumps are what collects from our facility and then goes into the actual sewer, so we don't need to treat. We would skip that step, but these are where the grinders are as well. It's kind of I think we've figured out how to handle it, but moving them or trying to figure out how to make that work somewhere else and what to do in the meantime is just kind of a nightmare to think about.
My thought was, okay, we keep talking about those. Is there another way to process that waste that might bring that cost way down? But that's okay. That's just a thought.
I'm happy to talk to Bryce if you'd like me to, though.
Whatever way we can help this project with that, you know, I just would hate to see an option that appears to be favored, not doable, because the process we're using existingly for sewer treatment might be able to be more efficient in another way. We always come to this point and stop because of the sewer, but maybe it's the sewer that we need to look at too. I don't know. I'm fascinated by sewer.
I'm not.
Good for you.
I think there's a great, there's a lot of good things in the future with that. Oh, sorry, Chief, thank you.
No, don't be sorry, I appreciate the conversation. With that said, Commissioner, at this point in time, recognizing that the public spoke about not voting in favor of a bond and additional revenue there. My current recommendation is further exploration of option 1A and 1B. What that allows from my desk, what that allows us to do is significantly move the ball forward as far as providing proper medical care for those that are in our custodial responsibility, and also allows for future expansion without locking future administrations into decisions that we make in 2024.
Do you feel like option 2 does that?
Yes. So what option 2 locks us into, for the costs, it doesn't open up enough bed space for me, strictly for me, to justify the additional costs.
It's bed space for today,
It's bed space for today,
but not
but not. What option 1 does is allows for that 2-tier direct supervision of our mentally ill population and pushes that ball forward.
Can I add something else?
I would appreciate it if you did.
Commissioner, also, I mentioned this in another meeting, but option 1 allows us to do construction without any interruption to our current operation. We can channel the access of construction workers, vehicles, supplies without interrupting any sort of traffic or operation to our facility with the inmates or the enforcement or anything like that. Through the backside, they'd have their access through there. We could even open up its own section of a gate or something like that. And it wouldn't do anything. All these others would interrupt operation where we might have to bring in portables or something like that. And it doesn't, it also does not prevent future growth either, where the others may cause an issue with future growth, which would allow us future growth with plans 1A and 1B, which will allow us to continue future growth plans.
Commissioner Bowles, any questions or
Any
comments?
questions? I appreciate your recommendations.
Thank you.
Future growth was a big thing, you know, one of the things I recognize that you're giving up were the other inclusion of the other services around from when this went to vote to these presentations here. It could be a footprint in the future. For instance, would you be able to use let's say, with the options 4 or 5 that included an administration building? 5 did, 4 was the laundry, never mind. But let's just say
35.
2, thank you, 2 and 5.
Yes.
If, would that give enough space that so one day that 20 years, let's just say, or whatever that number is, you could bring those services in if the time worked out again? Would that work with these?
Well, part of this discussion right now, we still have Kiesel for the other services. That's another discussion that we can still have. There's still the discussion of renovation of Kiesel that we need to talk about at some point. It could be now, could be later, but well, we've asked Sean to look at having a study done on the structure of it. If it's, because there's the 2 sections, there's the pod and there's a linear. The pod section, as we know, is still very useful. Right now, most of it's a staffing issue. But the linear section is problematic. You know, we got the roof problem. It's just labor intensive to keep it operating. But it could, with a certain amount of money, it could be operating again. The linear section, which is about 120 inmates in there. But the pod section, we could get up to, I think it's 156. We can put in there. So,
If I may, Sheriff,
please.
with option 1A and 1B, it also would allow some internal remodeling for additional office space, which may not get us all the way 20 years down the road, but would definitely get us down 10 years down the road.
Well, it also in 1A and 1B, we have not factored in the $2 million renovation for the
Video court.
and transportation, so we would definitely need that added. And we figure the overall cost for this, we figure around
We said 35 million, and then John Bond and Scott Park said 38 million.
so it's 30.8. And then you add roughly 2 more million, so we're looking around 33, 34, and then you have the John Bond fees, which is 5%, and then the Scott Park, which is another 5%, so total 10% between them two. Puts us about $38 million, $35 million.
So I just plug in, so it'd be $36.3 million. If you're only gonna be $2 million for the renovation costs, that's
2 or 2.2, I think was the last number we received on that.
Okay, so if we did that, so we're roughly at just under $37 million. That does include a 10% contingency, which we've been adding to most of our capital projects. And I've actually been very grateful that we have, because in most instances, we've needed that and sometimes more. I mean, this assumes construction starts at the end of this year. Let's say we delay it 6 months, you've got another, we're another year construction inflation. So I think it's reasonable to say $37 million project.
And commissioners, with the study that we're looking at potentially doing based on your approval, we would ask for that money to come out of the capital projects fund as well. We're anticipating probably around $100,000.
for the
For
Study on
the structural.
structure.
Correct. If you want an in-depth study, it may even be a little bit more than that, but we'll figure that out.
Commissioner Bolus.
On the renovation, that, for the video court and transport, those facilities won't be expanded? I thought they were gonna be larger.
Originally,
original.
in the original bond.
So 2.2 million wouldn't expand either of those.
So if you recall where our existing medical is, that office
Mhm.
space, we'll renovate a significant portion of that area for video court. And then instead of
Okay.
doing the transportation expansion that we had originally proposed, we would restructure, so we would just go out the transportation corridor that exists now. And so it would be better, it would be significantly better than what we have now,
Okay,
but not the ideal.
okay. Thank you.
And as you recall too, that these costs for the renovation inside.
Sorry, go ahead.
As you recall, that these costs to renovate would reduce the need for transportation and staffing to keep running back and forth to the courts, thus helping us keep staffing at the 12th Street facility where we need it the most. Pre-safety and so forth.
It's a good presentation. I love what you put on here. Thank you, Chief. These are great. Pictures help me a lot. So, and I've been out there enough to be around the facility. You guys have shared that enough. I love what you've been thinking about there.
Appreciate that.
Any other comments from others in the room?
Chair Harvey, they did meet with the Special Projects Committee this morning, and one of the items that came out of it is in reference to what Sean was speaking to is that the Special Projects Committee would like to make a recommendation that they complete a structural feasibility analysis of the Kiesel facility and then do an assessment of that from a fiscal impact study to see how that would be able to see what options would come out of that to present to you as a commission to be able to help in making a decision on what strategy to go with.
I think that those are good
Yeah, it
decisions.
makes sense because we can't make any decision on Kiesel unless we don't even know what it's worth.
Right.
Because we don't know what we can put in there or what anyone else can put in there, if it has to be demolished, we just don't know.
So Scott Park had mentioned that we might be able to take some funding out of the contingency fund to fund that study. So we'd like to make a request to just get some bids on what that would look like to bring back to you.
I would like to, on that amount, I'd like to get Commissioner Frore's input as well. Since you said 100 grand?
Yeah, that's
Kind
rough
of a
estimate.
rough estimate. Well, we can put a scope together and put some bids out and bring that information back to you, all three of you.
I don't have a problem with that.
Um,
Let's go ahead with that.
Okay.
You know, I'm gonna just say this though, why we're all in the room here. Years ago, and this just comes from, if you're senior, I guess I'm really senior. Years ago, the library went out to bid to rebuild the libraries. It went out on a bond and it failed. It didn't get a vote of the people. So they came back and updated everything and went back out a second time and it passed. I remember the night, or the next day after the election, Linda Wengsgard called me and she says, I cried myself to sleep. And I thought, Linda? She says, I cried myself to sleep because we really needed the jail to pass, and where it didn't pass, she was really disappointed. But then she told me that story. She says, I would be willing to help them. She said, when we came back, we made sure that it wasn't gonna fail again the second time. Now, in full disclosure, we met last week, with some capital projects, and we do have some money at Weaver County in our capital projects budget. But we have many things that are pressing here with regards to the parking terrace. We have some stuff to do here at this building. we also have a little bit to do with the ice sheet, and there's more there, but it's not all come together. But for me, I recognize that this is something that's sorely needed. I'd like to help find a way to say yes, but right now, I don't know another way to create more funds unless we have a phenomenal year this year. I look at you, John, I look at you, Scott, and I just don't know of a way that we could fund. I think the comments that were made in the meeting by the people that were in that meeting is, we have these needs. And we need to do them all, but we can't do them all right now. And so I'd like to accelerate this and maybe look, for me, to accelerate this project, maybe we also pursue Linda's option and go back a second time, where you come back from, instead of $98 million to the vote, come back and hit this another time with 38 million or whatever that number is for one A or one B. Those are just my thoughts though, in preparation. Any others on that?
You could it. We either take capital projects and work within that budget, or you add a tax increase. It's that simple. And how you approach the tax increase is either a sales tax bond, or as you just introduced, a GO. But there's not enough money to make everything work. And the commissioner's gonna have to balance what that priority is and timing and how much.
So I want to put that out there so we all know where we were on that, but I'd like to find a way to say yes to this somehow. Going to another truth and taxation doesn't excite me very much.
It's the reality though.
If I could make a recommendation on a GO bond, I'm here another term. I'm pretty sure we'll be probably going for pods in a couple of years. And if we hit them with the gel now, then we hit them with another, it's gonna be a huge battle. Just saying, because just the way that the trajectories and the data's coming in, we're gonna need pod space pretty quick.
Which is one A, one B, the presentation today.
Well,
Pods are not
they're,
included in one.
Pods are
they're
not
not
included.
included.
Oh, wow.
No,
They're not included.
that's why
That's,
they're in gray.
that's just medical and mental health.
That just shows how they're gonna connect in the
Yeah.
future. It's just the colored parts.
Cause the pods themselves are what, 20 to 30 million
As
dollars?
a
Yeah.
colorblind guy,
I'm sorry, that's why I pointed it
no,
out.
as a colorblind guy, that helps me a lot. So pods are another, how much?
About 30 million apiece.
Yeah,
So this plan is built out would be nearly $90 million, right,
yeah, if we were to do this, yeah,
today?
I would, that would be my recommendation, is not to go to bond because,
Yeah,
for that reason.
You know,
That's outside of our ability to fund with a sales tax approach, bond approach, so it would have to be a GO. Generally speaking.
well, it just depends on the commissioner's priority. If we were to use all the cash that we have for this, then we wouldn't have anything left for the parking structure and stuff like that. Yeah, I mean, so it really depends on your priority, but I do agree that a $30 million sales tax bond would push us right to the max of our credit card. And we would have no ability to react if there were a issue in the future that needed some debt. I mean, GO bond, if we could get it passed, is the easiest because it comes with the tax increase to pay for it. If we were to do a sales tax bond, we would likely have to raise taxes to pay for that.
Mhm.
Plus we would have maxed out the credit card. So, there are other financing options we could do depending on what other projects you decide. Maybe we finance these with a lease revenue bond, slightly higher interest rate. So we have some options, but we just need to figure out what commissioners your priority is and where you want us to put the resources. And then we can work on a plan to make it all work once we know what projects we're financing. We just don't have enough money to finance all the projects. So if we know what's projects 1, 2, and here's 1, 2, and 3, we'll go out and we'll figure out how to make it work.
okay. Man. Any other comments?
No.
All right, thank you. Any other presentation from you, Sheriff? It's heavy.
No, thank you very much for your time.
Appreciate it. I'll entertain that since, we're gonna strike the third item on our work session today, which was an administrative discussion. We're gonna strike that today. So we will return, at around 1 o'clock for another discussion. I'll entertain a motion to saunter until then.
So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, we're, gonna saunter till 1 o'clock.
I can't.
I will attempt to do
Obviously.
so.
Let's get started here. We're back at our commission work session. We'll move on to the discussion regarding the CJC. We've got the director here, Mr. Rod Lake. Katie O'Blennis has joined us with Ms. Stephanie Ebert.
Emily Wild.
Emily Wild. It just takes me a while. I should have just went down this way instead. Scott Park, Chris Crockett, and we've got a full commission, board of commissioners that are here in person. Rod, you want to go ahead and start, please?
Yeah, I'll start it off and then I'll defer some stuff over here. I just started looking at my staff and some adjustments that I needed to make with some salaries and positions. One of the reasons I want to make them is two, really. So Trudy Flora, when Trudy was with us, she had a certain responsibility, and then when she retired, we took a look at everything and we decided let's reevaluate what people's doing and maybe give taking some of Trudy's responsibilities and giving them to other people and just reorganize a little bit. So that's what we did. So we still have that, and Scott can jump in anytime if I'm saying this wrong, but we still have her budget. We haven't used the money we had budgeted for Trudy, but we're gonna move it around a little bit and some of those responsibilities. I'm not trying to take all the money that Trudy was making and using it all up. Okay, so that's not my intent, but I did see that I've added responsibilities to people that Trudy had. I've increased some of those things and I've specialized it with a few people. So that's one of the issues with some of my employees. The other one is probably the most critical, and one that's just happened is with our forensic interviewers. So forensic interviewers are incredibly specialized. They're new to everybody in the world. We haven't been using them forever. As you well know, we've added forensic interviewers. And so they're just starting to make a place across the state. And because of how specialized they are, because of the bachelor's degree that we require, because of just the stress of the workload and how many. So I actually looked at I have three. I have Anna, I have Carly, and I have Brianna Martinez. I have those three. Brianna especially is very, very low for what forensic interviewers are making across the state. So I started pulling up a couple of the other centers. It's difficult sometimes to compare centers because of just the way that they're run different. But when I pulled up the ones that are close to us, which is Utah County and Davis County, they're very close to how we run things. Their interviewers were about $35 an hour. Brianna is at 26. And so as a little 26 and a little bit, I said, I've gotta. So what's going on is they're so specialized and so sought after that now people are looking across the state to find interviewers that are willing to move. And I don't want that to happen. You know, I've got a lot of money invested in all three of these. And so my suggestion with Emily, and we sit down, Emily was wonderful. She went through it all. We worked through it. We want to suggest or make a recommendation that we bring all three of those interviewers up to 32. I'm not going to try to match Utah or Davis. There's just circumstances, but it gets them in a place where they really prefer Weaver County. They love working in Weaver County. I've got a lot of money invested in training with all three of them. Anna Peely is just on call. So there's not a whole lot of money there, but she is an expert witness for our county attorney's office. They call her all the time. They ask for her opinion on interviews, how they can defend those. So she's very valuable. I want to keep her around. Carly, part-time, not a lot of money there as well, but I just think it's critical that we get them up to what they're worth and the job that they do. I also pulled up all the stats for across the state. Brianna does more interviews than anybody else in the state of Utah. So if you look at some of the size of those centers, Salt Lake does 2,500 cases compared to our 800 or 900 cases. Utah County does 1,200 cases. So they're bigger centers, but Brianna's still doing way more interviews than anybody else in the state. And she's the lowest paid. So with this extra little money that I got there, I just want to make those adjustments, and then I want to make a couple of other adjustments. I'm gonna turn that over to you, Emily, if you could cover that part. They're not big adjustments, but I think they're also critical in what I'm trying to do here.
So when we sat down last week and talked about this, with the forensic interviewers, you'll see there's actually, on the top portion, there's actually 4, but one of them, Courtney Preston, she actually is not really a forensic interviewer. She does some of that, but she actually does a lot of other work. So we decided to take and do a forensic interview or level 2 and move it to a band 17 and then do the 32 an hour. That seemed consistent with what Davis County is doing and also Salt Lake County, or Utah County, even though they're a little bit differently. And then we also looked at the finance assistant position and looking at her job description. She does some finance responsibilities, but there really is just basic office management responsibilities as well. And so we looked at different positions, like positions within the county, at a business office manager, and felt like she actually fit more within a business office manager too. Now her pay would go up just a little bit with the increased duties that Rod will be assigning her, but not by much. And then we have the office specialist 1, Carissa. She will also have some increased duties as well. And so again, looking at internal equity, we looked at the different positions for office specialist 1 and office specialist 2 within the county. And with those increased duties, felt like that she met the office specialist 2 job duties. And so that would be a little bit of an increase as well, about 70 cents. And then Chris Ward, we've got him as an office specialist too, but his rate would not.
See the same Chris Ward that worked for us years ago?
Yeah.
And he came back for $21, huh?
You wanted something to
Well,
do?
he has a retirement cap
Yeah.
too, so
Here's a cap.
he's a little different because he can only make so much with URS.
He's a good guy.
He's my.
Yeah.
Oh, he's so valuable up there. The people love Chris. It's amazing how he connects to those little kids and the families. Unbelievable.
He's got a wonderful personality.
Mhm. Yeah.
He's your favorite up there? You talk to him, Mike?
You know, he's just my favorite. You're all my favorite, but he's a favorite too. Sorry, Rod. I meant Rod's my favorite.
There you go. Make sure that's on the minutes.
In terms of funding, Steph, did you wanna? talk
Yeah,
about
I
funding?
can talk to that. So when the budget was submitted last fall, when we were having our budget hearings, Rod had brought this situation up. They had a position, it's listed up there in yellow, position 995, which is the one that he spoke about. And we had talked about the compensation plan that the county was proposing, and talked about coming back if that was not enough to get those individuals up to where Rod felt like they should be. And so we actually eliminated that position at the CJC's request, but didn't fund it either. And so any of these additional funds that will be required to increase these individuals would have to have a budget change from the process in order to put the money back into the budget. The total amount of that position was $43,000. And the changes that Rod is asking for only total about $20,000. So it's less than half of what that position was budgeted for originally.
But we will have to pull it from the contingency, and that's what we told everybody is, we're sweeping it all. We're not gonna leave it in there just in case. We're sweeping it all in, and if you need it, come back and ask for it. That's what he's doing. He gave up $43,000. He's asking for 20,000 of it back to help with this.
Commissioner comments, Commissioner Bolos, let's start with you.
Don't start with me.
Okay,
Please,
Commissioner Frohr.
please.
Well, the only question I have, so you've got 3 at 32, is that gonna create a compression issue? Because I know we've talked about Brianna before when we had to give her an increase, 2 or 3 years ago. After she got her degree, I mean, I forget what it was. Wasn't that the person that had the,
Well, Brianna's been there 2 years and she came with the degree.
yeah,
I don't know.
anyway, so is it fair to have all of them at 32? I mean, is that gonna, she's obviously your probably go-to person.
Well, she's a go-to person, but Carly and Anna have been there. Anna started in 2015.
Okay.
So she's got 7 or 8 years of experience, and then you've got Carly, who's been there about 6 years.
Okay.
7 years. So as far as time on the job, they got quite a bit more than Brianna. So as we looked at it, we were like, why don't we just do all 3 of them at 32? Brianna's doing full-time and more interviews, but they have the time. So just, that's kind of what my thought was, and it's not a lot of difference, but I would have had a hard time bringing Brianna up to 32 and I got Anna sitting there at 26 or 27. When we're calling her all the time going, you're our expert, you're our, and the county attorney using her quite often for that. So, and it's not a lot of money. I just didn't know how I was gonna do that with those other 2. Carly's the same.
So you comfortable with that, Emily?
Yeah.
Okay,
I think I've got it.
Pretty equitable that way.
If you're happy with it.
Commissioner Bolos?
We always feel like when departments come in for a budget adjustment, why wasn't this budgeted? And then Scott, or maybe it was Stephanie, brings up the point that we said, cut it, and if you need it, we'll come back.
Yep.
Which is what's happening. So I don't think we can play both sides of the fence.
No, this is tough.
know?
Yeah.
We
Cause we're
can't,
really,
because we really asked them to do that with the explanation that we would consider adjustments.
thank you. You're right, and that this is tough. Because I just want, especially Emily and Scott and well, since you're here. And
You can leave me out.
No.
I beg Katie to come.
You say, hey, listen, don't come with mid-year requests. Tell them to come and we've been really good about that. But, I guess that's exactly, I guess I'm just repeating what Commissioner Bolos said. Here's the situation, because we did have those big cuts to help make up the budget and reduce the truth and taxation hearing amount. Yes, is just what it is.
Well, I feel good about Rod's because we discussed Rod's in the budget hearing. Whereas if, not that Sean would do this, but let's say Sean came out in one of his departments and said, well, we've never talked about this before, but
Sure.
now it's March and I need a whole bunch of money. That would be different in my mind, but we knew about this, we talked about it. We were hoping that what we could do would be enough. It just turned out to be, it wasn't. So I do think it's a little bit different. I mean, I agree with you, Commissioner. I think it's a little bit different of a situation is we asked them to cut this and come back if it wasn't enough. So they're doing exactly what we'd asked them to do in the budget.
Well, it's kind of like that previous discussion we had earlier today where we talked about roofs. They're all, we know already that roofs, HVAC and parking lots are 3 big expenses. And they should be on some kind of sorry, this is aside from you.
You're good.
This should be on some kind of a wear factor or a replacement schedule, or we're saving for a rainy day. And for that to all of a sudden spring up today, that should have been budgeted or should be on some kind of thing. And now we're pulling it from contingency. So So it looks like we've got a little more work to do there. Anyway, so with regards to this, I think you've got a consensus from the commission to move forward.
Thank you.
Perfect, thank you.
Happy day.
Happy day for me.
Look what Scott has.
Will make us.
Oh, God.
Gage, I need a signature from you.
His contingency, just in case.
That's just the detail of what's gonna be given to him, yeah.
I got a pen, like
Thank
Boy
you.
Scout.
It's a blue pen too, I like it.
Sure it is.
Okay,
Okay, great, thank
you
you.
got it.
Mr. Park, you
Ask
want us to
again.
initial that too, or not? Can, we'd love it. There you go. Okay, anything else, Rodney?
I just wanna thank these guys. I mean, they've been so awesome to work with. And I know this stuff gets tricky and Emily and I sit down for 2 hours and went through this and we did everything. So you got some great people and they watch. Man, I was totally lost. It was going over my head. I said, just do it, Emily, just change it. What the heck, you know? But
We have a process.
They know their stuff and I really appreciate you guys in doing this because it does bring us up to where I don't want anybody stealing our people.
You have the hardest kind of work in the county, Rod. We love.
And I tried to throw that in with Emily too. I'm like, hey, you know what we have to do? So that was some money. Unfortunately, that's not built into the pay. I tried that. It didn't work with her.
You did come at me with a little more than what is proposed here.
I'm like,
based
you
on
know what they
our
have to put up
discussion.
with up there, but maybe you should build something in there like the stress level.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
thank you.
Great. Appreciate it. That's it. You got your
Thank you.
paper. You got what you came for. Do we have Tammy A lot outside there? And Charlie and Rick by chance?
Yes.
Charlie's
Not
down
out
in
there
his
quite
office.
If not, they
Want me to
will
ring
be.
it out?
No, it's okay. They'll be here in a minute. I'll take another
Not
motion.
yet, but I can call him.
No, well, we're ready. We'll just motion to saunter here. I'll take a
Okay.
motion to saunter.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? We're
Aye.
sauntering till 1:30. We're back at our work session. This is a discussion regarding the wayfinding signs and funding. Tammy Adelot, Sean Wilkinson, Scott Park, Charlie Ewert. And we're minus Rick Grover, but we're sure he'll join us soon. Let's start with Tammy because you're listed first. Miss Adelot, go ahead.
I'm gonna defer to Charlie, actually.
Charlie?
So we've got, what's the word, bond, grant, we have a grant from the state to finish our, pedestrian wayfinding signage, which was the least controversial of the signage. In fact, everybody seemed to love those when they went up. They were nice, small, they were proportionate to the trails, so. We do have the rest of the system that we want to put in. The ones that are up now, the biggest complaint we've been getting is that there's just a few of them that are too far apart where, you know, you're not leading people to the full system, especially where we get around that corner on Huntsville. Then we have a few other spots. And so we've got an opportunity through GoEd. We already have a grant in place. We had that approved by you guys and by GoEd last year, thanks to Stephanie. And we just missed getting it on the budget for this year for impact fee spending, which we've got funds working for it. We just need to make sure you guys are comfortable with spending impact fee dollars on it.
It's on the consent agenda tomorrow as the amended agreement with the state. We got an extension from the state. And that's on your consent agenda tomorrow to just extend the contract.
Right.
With the state.
With the state, so we can get those funds.
They wanted us to have everything expended by the end of May, and we asked them to the end of August.
Mhm.
We asked for, yeah. Which at the same time, we've got a contract with our signage company, Graphic House, to fabricate those signs using state funds and then impact fee dollars.
And this is an additional grant, right? Because we already spent $400,000 on impact or on wayfinding signs.
Yep, separate from that. So the
Yeah.
$400,000 was specifically for vehicle wayfinding. We have also already spent, I think we spent close to 50 or 60,000 on the previous phase of pedestrian, which I think we had 50 or 60,000 from the state on that too. The state loved it. They thought they were really nice signs. We've got a little GoEd logo on the stem of some of those signs to show that GoEd participated, and they really thought that was a great way to use their logo, and we figured, they threw another 88,000 at it for this year.
That was, we got that in 2022, but we need an extension to spend it.
So, and we didn't have this on any of our lists because we showed we were basically spending out the entire wayfinding project last year in 2023, and I wasn't
Yeah.
aware of another grant. Now, how much is the grant for? Is it 80,000 or is it full 200,000 that's being requested?
It was 88, I believe, is what it
Okay.
was. I'll
Yeah.
have to look at the number again.
So you got an $88,000 grant, but we need to spend 220, right?
I believe the full system was 265.
270.
Oh, so yeah, 270,000.
So we get like about $100,000 out of impact fees or so.
Well, if you got 80,000 and we're at 270, so nearly 200,000, right?
Correct, thank you.
Okay, so,
So 200,000 more.
so yeah, $200,000 more. So this wasn't on any of our, so we didn't discuss this in the budget. I wasn't aware of it, and we'll figure out how.
So, yeah, I guess, yeah, that makes sense, because I didn't know that I didn't know they had extended the project until a couple weeks ago.
Okay.
Or last month when Tammy told me. So that money was promised, the in-kind match was promised in
Last year.
2022 for 2023.
Yep.
Yeah, we just need to make sure that all those get through, because I didn't include it in the budget. I wasn't aware of it until, yeah, so.
I didn't know either.
Yeah,
so.
so we have money in the impact fee fund balance to
Okay.
use it, so we can dip into the impact fee fund balance. The money's restricted. It's not currently, as I understand it, an allowed use of impact fees. We have to pass the approved impact fee
It's done.
plan.
Facilities plan.
The
yeah.
facilities plan.
It's ready. We're just waiting for a couple of the other impact fee plans, but this will be done before we spend that money.
Yeah,
Is that where it was originally dedicated out of, the match? Okay, I just can't remember. It was a while back.
yeah. So, yeah, and so the order of operations is we have to get the plan passed first. I mean, you can approve the budget change today, that's fine, but the contract that you're signing, we basically can't use the money for that until this is passed. And then it would become an allowable use.
So do you need to take that off consent agenda? Or not?
I
just
would defer,
preemptive.
yeah, so what?
It's preemptive, right? It's just ahead of time. Just make sure we don't spend it until this is adopted.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I hate doing that because I hate having to remember now that we've approved something, but I can't actually do how I've entered it into the accounting system because I've got to now track a sticky note somewhere to remember not to spend it until this is signed.
What would you prefer?
I mean, order of operations, I would prefer to have that approved first and then a budget change spending in accordance with the approved plan. Otherwise, I have to try to reconcile something that's approved but not legal until that's approved. But that's, I don't know if there was timing for the vendor, do they need to do prep work to get the signs prepared?
They are ready to go the moment we have
Okay.
everything approved. So the contract with them hasn't been approved yet because we wanted to make sure that the impact fee plan was done so that we could fund this. So they're just waiting.
I can't remember, from the impact fee statute, do we have to do public hearings?
Couple of
So there's some risk. I don't know how involved people would be, but people came in and said, no, we're firmly against signs, and you guys decided to pull it out. Now we've got a contract signed, spending $200,000 that we don't have.
I'll be honest with you, our impact fee folks said, impact or wayfinding signage is part of trail building. You don't have to say it in your impact fee plan. And we said, well, we feel like we probably should, just to be specific, because it wasn't specified in the past. Some people could argue potentially that because we weren't building wayfinding signage with our trails in the past, we're trying to fix a deficiency, which we're not. We're just trying to finish the trails that we started building on. That's the whole system.
Commissioner Faur, comments?
Well, a couple of questions. So what else would we use those impact fees on? What, is there anything else that would and I'm assuming you're just talking Ogden Valley.
Yes, just for this signage
Yeah,
program. Yes.
so where else would we have a need for those impact fees?
So I would defer to this, the impact fee plan, because that's supposed to list out all the areas. I don't know, truthfully, I'm not very familiar with the plan itself as to where else we could use that money.
It's a big list.
These will come from our trail impact fee specifically. So, and that's a combined Ogden Valley, Western Weaver County fund. So those can be used on any trails that we are building within Western Weaver or Ogden Valley.
So theoretically, if you didn't want to spend any more money in trails in the Upper Valley, you could take all this money, including what's earmarked for here, and do something out in Western Weaver County if you wanted.
Well, so that's really where I'm headed with this, because I heard there's a group in Ogden Valley that has been working in conjunction with the Trails Foundation.
Yeah.
That says they're breaking apart. They're setting up their own trails network for Ogden Valley.
That's correct.
Does that happen?
That is true.
Now, which makes no sense to me, but, so, anyway, so that's my concern is if we spend that now and it's a separate organization, where does that, and whether that's a good idea or a bad idea, it's not my determination, but I don't want to commit to spending money up there if that's gonna be an entirely different group that, you know, we've had some pretty good connections, excuse me, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
With the Trails Foundation, we've supported them in their projects over the last several years. I just hate to see that go away,
Me too.
but
Well, and you do have other potential trail projects. I'm not sure how I forget what it's called, the 3 Gate Trail or whatever, the one that goes by Hill Air Force Base.
yeah,
So, I mean, there's other options for whatever you guys want to do, but I'll defer to you guys and however you want to spend it.
I would like to, personally, I'd like to see how that plays out with that new group in the valley, whether if that sets up and then.
We're meeting with them tomorrow or Wednesday. I think Wednesday.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, well, I prefer that we just put this on hold, and, I mean, I understand where you're headed, Scott, which I think is a good idea, but I would soon not pass anything or make commitments until we know exactly where they're headed. Because that, we have some other options.
Mr. Bullock?
We can still, add that to the impact fee study, right?
You could, if,
Plan.
for example, if the
Yeah.
Ogden Valley incorporates, they'd have to do their own
Yeah,
at some point, so this.
We might
make
as
it-
well take that step first.
Yeah,
While we wait
and I
for
have no
the-
problem with doing that, I just don't wanna
Yeah,
commit.
Sure.
Where I'm talking about is committing the money
Yeah.
for the 200,000.
I think you're gonna get a consensus from us today to follow the proper process. Not make Scott Park put a sticky note up. And just but you know where we are right now with that. Thanks for pushing that forward. This is kind of a little pet project, as you know, I've had this for 7 years now.
Yeah.
But I think I think we're all in agreement that even notwithstanding the discussion about this trail split. But let's just, I think it's wise to follow the proper process.
We've got a couple things waiting in the wings. We've got a contract amendment with the state on that grant money. That when we get that done, and then we've got a contract extension with Graphic House. And they are chomping at the bit because we did give them a deadline and when we want that done, but we're a little bit behind the 8 ball on this one because we're kind of, right now, it's a little bit
beholden to other impact fee plans, and I think I'll talk to the engineering division if John and Rick is okay with that, and we'll just see if we can move this one ahead, so that we can get this one adopted.
Yeah, that sounds reasonable.
We'll get back in order.
So for tomorrow, would you like me to remove that consent item agenda?
Just put it on removed on our consent. We'll just, when we make the,
It's right here. I had submitted it for, it's the
Oh.
agreement between the state.
Okay, we can just strike
It's
that.
the agreement between the state and Weaver County. It's an
It's the
extension.
grant agreement.
Well, is there any risk if we, like, is the agreement currently in place right now? It's currently
Yes.
active? Like,
Yes.
is it gonna expire? And
Yes.
It will.
So that means the contract completely goes away? Is it at risk of losing this grant?
Yes.
If
So,
we don't do that,
but
We did the
It
extension.
doesn't have to be immediately, but we did tell them that we would get that extension signed quickly. By the end of May is
Yeah.
when they're requiring it.
But it's okay, because worst case scenario, we extend it and don't.
we don't
Don't use it.
use the grant fund. I
Yeah.
mean, is that what the ramification is? We're
Yes.
not legally committed to actually go through and build this. It's just giving us an extension.
Correct.
And so we can't make the in-kind donation until it's legally approved. And so I don't really see a risk in
It extends
approving
until August
the,
2nd.
the extension now.
Okay.
It just buys you.
so this just keeps the grant in place.
Yeah, keeps the grant place.
Yeah.
well, let's go to, Charlie, can you have this done by the Mother's Day?
Yes. I will make
Okay,
sure it's
great.
done.
Mother's Day's a couple months away and,
Be a good gift.
yeah, yeah.
Piece of cake.
Okay, then we'll bring that back, then we'll know a little more about your friends, you know,
Well,
your colleagues, your, whatever you call
well, we won't mention what I call them. That's up to Sean.
So commissioners, we will not process a budget change for it, and nor will I approve the graphic house contract that's out there currently until this is approved, and then we'll have to come back and get money added to the budget again.
But we will move forward with the extended agreement with the state and Weaver County.
them. Great,
Grant funds.
Yeah,
I
the
think
graphic
we're
house
all
one
in
is
agreement on that.
one we Definitely don't want to sign.
Yes.
We're all singing out of the same hymnal.
Scott had something for us to sign.
Only if it was approved, that's probably.
No, just Barbie bag and it's right there for us. Put it back.
He's very disappointed it's not signed.
Barney's back.
Get a stack of the.
Okay,
I like it.
is that it?
Keep me posted on that, would you, Sean?
You got it.
Wow.
Tomorrow you're meeting with them?
Is it Alan?
It's Wednesday. It's Alan Wheelwright, but I've got emails from Eric Manning at TFNU.
Just in case.
And he's saying, sounds like maybe this is a good thing and they
I have no
can work
idea.
together.
Oh,
So,
well, if
Alan Wheelwright.
yeah, he started his own, they call
Alan
it
Will-
Eden Valley Trails Network.
Alan Wheelwright, yeah.
Eden Valley Trails Foundation.
the guy that ran against me for the legislature a few years back.
And it's.
Well, if there, I heard Eric was taken by surprise at that meeting when Alan broke in the news.
I got an email from Eric.
Maybe he's, maybe he's just
Just pulls money out.
come to terms. I don't know. Alan Wheelwright.
Yeah. He does a lot of work.
He does, no,
He needs something.
he's a. Oh, this is what-
Hey,
This would be-
Scott.
I've got a meeting.
This is what I think
This
he
would be a
has.
great project to put in your,
Slip them.
grant fund software.
Yeah.
All of my projects would be great to put in your.
We need to
grant
set the
funding
time to go over that, you know, just with the payroll system and some of those projects that just fall on the priority list. It's something we sorely need, but
I know.
not the big fire.
Well, now's a good time to do it because we got appropriation money coming in
I'll tell you what.
for programs. I'm going after a bunch of grants, in the next 2 months.
Let's set up a time just, in the next week or so.
Just to show me.
No,
Yeah, just to show you where it's at, and you can start using it. I don't have any issues if you want to start using it.
Like this one, Tammy had sent me an email that just said, hey, we need to extend this contract. I mean, I didn't give it 2 seconds. I didn't know that they had worked out the match. I had no idea.
Well, and that's the thing, is like, I had no idea about this until it came through that it was an additional $200,000.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I forgot about that part just because this was
Yeah,
2 years
Yeah,
ago.
who is Sparkle on that?
I'm Sparkle. I'm Sparky, actually.
Say, I just said Sparky and you said Sparkle.
No.
So 2 o'clock Wednesday afternoon is when we're meeting with Alan.
With Eric as well.
Eric will be there. So Eric asked,
I like Sparky better
I
than
was
Sparkle.
wrong.
I
He
like
just said,
Sparky.
will the new trail nonprofit Alan Wheelwright is starting with John Lewis affect what TFNU does in the valley and with the Pineview Loop and county support?
He's asking us that?
He's asking us if, I guess he's concerned that maybe we're gonna go with this new group and
Oh,
take our support away from TFNU, but we're not going to do that.
no, as far as I'm concerned, Trails Network's the one where you work on.
If we, right now, you know, to be fair, hold on, you need to see this. So, hold on. motion to go into close, or motion to saunter.
Motion to saunter.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
We're gonna saunter till 2 o'clock. We're gonna move back into our 2 o'clock to our work session here, the discussion regarding the Weber County volunteer policy. We have Chris Crockett and Emily Wild. Miss Wild, you're listed first. Why don't you go ahead with that?
Okay, so there's actually a couple policies. These are ones that we talked about a week ago, and we just came back and had a couple updates. So I've got some hard copies if you guys would like some hard copies. But last week, as you recall, we talked about the telecommuting policy, and we did add the sentence in there about departments establishing their own internal policy in that.
Yeah.
And so that was added to the telecommuting policy. And then the tuition reimbursement policy. So then Commissioner Farrar, you had asked about the eligibility and the first come, first serve.
Yeah.
So Scott and I met on that, and we actually thought, well, we removed the first come, first serve eligibility rule, and basically saying when budget funds are available, all employees who meet the eligible criteria can participate. So we kind of reworded that, and based on budget funds, anybody who applies would get the tuition reimbursement or 50% up to the IRS limit.
Based on the amount of dollars we have to spend.
Well, how we would do that is, right now we budget health insurance, but if somebody gets married, we just cover that. And if somebody goes from a family and their kids all move out, now they go down to two-party, we don't let the department spend that. So the county accepts the risk that people's health insurance is going to change. We would do the same thing on this and just say, look, here's what we think people are gonna spend in tuition reimbursement. Here's our best guess for the budget, and then we're gonna make the plan available. Like if 5 more people join than what we had budgeted for, well, then we have a budget variance. We'll cover that. Next year, we'll adjust our budgets moving forward.
We just eat it, okay.
Yeah, we basically just eat it. And then, but also if not enough people sign up, then we keep that.
Right.
So we're just gonna accept the risk if you're okay with it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's too hard to prorate.
Yeah,
It's a lot of time and effort for
Yeah.
something that.
makes sense.
Costs you more money than it did on the other.
Appreciate you looking at that, that's great.
Okay.
And then one thing we also added to this is, Scott and I, as we were talking about it with the tuition reimbursement, they need to send in to HR their final amount so that we can verify that they don't go over the IRS limit. And then we'll enter it into the accounting system so that we can make sure that, budget wise and everything is going to the right code. So currently departments are doing that, but we'll do that in HR. So we did add that to the policy as well. So, and then the internship policy, as you recall, we talked about that last week. I did talk with Cortland, and we did add one clarifying sentence. So, with unpaid internships, they can be for like a credit. So if it's they have to take a class that's 5 credits, that it's an internship, or if there is a class that requires them on-site learning. So for example, with the health department, there are some nursing classes that require them to do like 50 hours of observation for community health. So that would also be considered an unpaid internship. So we added that clarification into the policy as well, that we talked about last week. And then the new policy is, again, this is the volunteer policy. So this is just to help standardize kind of what people are doing, and some people are doing things and some aren't. So this is to standardize the volunteer policy. So this is a brand new policy, and kind of the main bullet points. So departments, they need to have an established written policy for their own department for having volunteers. Every volunteer needs to sign the Weber County volunteer application. So right now we have some departments who are having their volunteers fill this out, and we have some that are not. So in HR, we need to be the record keeper. So according to kind of the state volunteer requirements, we need to have a record keeper. So naturally that would be HR, we're the record keeper for employees. But we don't have record of all of the volunteers at the county. So this policy establishes that the applications need to be signed by all volunteers, and then they need to be sent to our office for record keeping requirements. Volunteers under the state code, they're not compensated, but they can receive certain types of pay. So uniforms, necessary protective equipment, non-pecuniary items that don't exceed $50. So like, if we have volunteers for the fair, you can purchase the fair t-shirts for them. That's all, well within the code. You can provide a meal that doesn't exceed $50. So that's, under the state code, we added that to the policy.
Is that,
Um,
excuse me, is that a day or is that for the whole time?
I don't think it specifies. I think it's for the whole time.
It can't be, that's not enough then.
For
50.
the meals.
Yeah, cause these fair volunteers, some of them get four shirts and they get 4 meals, or some of them might get 8 meals, a lunch and a dinner. They come at 6 in the morning and go home at midnight. And so, I just don't want to get into a ticky-tack foul here.
I'm not aware of a legal limit because it's not income.
As long as it's not cash or cash equivalent, and that's our.
No, they're just shirts and
Right.
they're shirts and they get a little chit. A little ticket to go to their in-house. Yeah, and they have a corn dog or a hamburger or whatever for the day.
So in the policy, we don't necessarily say like per day or anything. It just says meals not exceeding a value of $50. So,
I just want to be careful.
yeah,
I don't want to have to revisit it and open it up again.
I don't blame you.
I mean, we could check with Portland on that. I don't know where he got the $50 from. I think that.
I think,
that's actually in the volunteer act. But I don't read that as a daily or a limit, total limit, $50. I read those as just each item that you get can't exceed that amount.
so like
Value.
each ticket for
Each
each
ticket,
meal
yeah.
can't be more than $50. So
Yeah.
even though they're getting a meal each day,
What
$50.
I'm saying, sorry to interrupt, but what I'm saying is here, the volunteer, the last thing I want that to happen is come back to the volunteer where they're trying to do something good and get bit. I don't
Yeah.
want that, no.
I will double check with Cortland on that, with the $50 and if we need
Having
to
worked in that
clarify.
space for 24 years, that's my real antennas at full mast on this.
Okay. Okay, I will go back to Cortland and we'll look into that $50 maximum. So with the volunteers, they are entitled to workers' comp. They have the liability protections like against harassment, discrimination, things like that. So we added that to the policy. And again, they need to come through HR, and they're not compensated for their time. Because they're volunteers, and then volunteers can be terminated by either party at any time. So those are the main bullet points of the policy. Any questions?
Questions, Commissioner Frohr?
I like what you've done.
Comments, questions?
No, I like it when you if you make any change to that $50. I think an
Yeah,
email is sufficient. I don't think you need to have another work session.
Nope.
Just email us. Is that okay?
Yep,
Let us know.
Okay,
it looks great, yeah?
okay, sounds good. Now, I would like to present all of these policies that we've been reviewing tomorrow in the extended department head meeting, to make sure that, there are no additional questions, and then move it to commission meeting for signature.
Do you think you can get comment from the ambassador by tomorrow morning?
It's in statute. Yeah, we'll get you a comment.
Okay.
Yep.
That'd be
So,
good. They might even have a couple of suggestions. You never know.
yeah,
All righty, that sounds good. I think you've got a consensus.
okay,
I was gonna try to throw one
Yep.
on. So we talked about our interdepartmental policy a little while ago, and we just wanted to clarify the sentence that the interdepartmental policy applies only when goods and services are provided from one county department to another. So if it's a county sponsored training, let's say the clerk auditors wants to bring the Clerk Auditor Association up and use the conference center.
Oh,
That's not an interdepartmental bill. It's not charged at the interdepartmental rate. That's charged at whatever the OECC's rate is. And if they want to do a discount, then they do that according to the normal policies.
Good.
So we're just clarifying that interdepartmental means one department to another department, not because I'm the clerk auditor and I have affiliated groups, or I'm the treasurer and I have affiliated
Right.
groups, that I get that rate for them. So it's just one modification, and I put it in
that's
here.
fair.
And we've talked, this actually came at the request of the conference center.
Yeah, thank you. I've been aware of this one.
So it just been, we now adjusted B. You can see that now, just.
You might get, the engineers saying, hey, we want to have all the engineering, the big engineering association up here for it. Can't you give us a deal? Cause I'm Gary and I'm asking, not that Gary asked, you know, but it's how it's been going though, a lot of time.
Sure.
The sheriff's notorious for it.
Yeah,
And
and we're,
so, and that's, you guys, it's the way they paid the bill, and so I think it's, this is good accounting procedure.
and it's just clarifying what we had intended all along, but we've heard of some issues, and so we just want to clarify, look, it's one department to another,
Yep.
not affiliated. So
That's
if
how
you're
it
okay with
is.
that, I'll put that on the agenda.
Clarifies things.
Yeah, it's good. I think it's good. Commissioner Bolos,
Good.
Yeah, I like them.
there we go.
Okay. Thank you.
Happy day.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Em. Always a
Thank you,
pleasure.
Emily.
Well, here we are again with just another 10 minutes.
Gifts, it's like, not exceeding the value of 50 per person.
That might affect my weed day.
If it goes
Your
over
weed
50,
training.
then they're not.
That sounds nefarious.
No,
Yeah.
different type of weed.
Yeah, man.
That's like when Gus has to stay after and do late joint.
Yeah.
He has to do late joint.
So you're saying.
Are you doing late joints tonight?
Actually don't know. I don't-
Something about that late surgery that makes me really relaxed.
I like
That's where he's
late
getting at.
surgery.
We'll just clarify and then I'll send an email out.
Yeah.
Oh, crock.
Thank you.
That's what I think.
Crooked.
Speaking of names, I never call you Chris when I'm talking about you.
All right, let's get
Everyone
this
calls me
going.
Crockett.
Was Ben gonna be online?
Yeah.
Did you hear?
Yeah, Christie, if you can still hear us, let's set up for 2:30. You were gonna put to go in fact, commissioners, I'll entertain a motion to go into closed session to discuss the purchase, exchange, or lease of real property.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to go to closed session. All in favor?
Aye.
My motion carries. We're now in